What's up, guys? It's Rick Ginn, and today we are talking about actually a very different subject called Airbnb and the crash that is coming. And most importantly, I'm going to relate it how it affects wholesaling. Because listen, I own Airbnbs, and I'm going to share you some of the issues with it, and give you kind of like the 30,000-foot view and show you why this is actually good news for wholesaling. So do me a favor, if you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed and click the like button, and we'll get it going. So if you guys are brand new to the channel, just come over and join us over at freewholesaling.com. I'm going to put it on the ticker on the bottom there. This is a course me and my son have created 100% free to learn everything you need to know about wholesaling, not only to get your first deal, to get you to your first 100,000. It is free. We are the only people out there that give you 100% free course. Do we have paid stuff? Yes, but we always provide the free because, listen, money's tight, we get it, and we believe if we can teach you the skill of wholesaling, you'll come back and do deals with us. If you don't believe me, check it out. Go to freewholesaling.com. Everything you need, not only get your first deal, get you to first 100 grand, is in that course. Do we cause issues by doing it? I don't cause any issues with you. I just provide value and I help you out. I put my money where my mouth is. A lot of other people like to complain about it, but like, I get it. The only people we're here to appease is you guys. Why? Because I need wholesalers that actually want to do this business, who want to put in the hard work. And if that's you, check it out at freewholesaling.com. I'll put it on the bottom. So enough of that. Let's jump on and let's talk about Airbnbs. You're like, Rick, what can you tell me you don't know about it? Well, the really cool thing is the company hasn't even been around that long. You think, oh, how big can Airbnb be? Big. It's an $80 billion cap rate, which means that's how much money the thing's worth. And keep in mind, they don't own a piece of real estate. They are just the middleman. So I want you to see the opportunity. If Airbnb can do it and scale it to its opportunity, you can do the exact same with wholesaling. Not 80 billion. I already told you all real estate's local. But the idea is if you treat it like a business and make it work, you too can have these opportunities. Remember, all Airbnb is an Uber applied to real estate. That's all it is. So let's get into it. Let's tell you about the problems. If someone's said, hey, dude, you got to do this Airbnb thing, I'm just telling you, it's not a good long-term play. Now, I've always told you, the only Airbnbs I would even consider, and the ones that I own, are going to be destination locations. Places where people would go to vacation. How do I know this? You're usually going to have a waterfront view, either the ocean, the river, or a lake. You get one of those three, you have a chance. Does everybody understand that? It's so important people understand how Airbnbs work. But here's the problem is a lot of Airbnbs, if people have tried to like, well, there's so much pressure on real estate, let's do Airbnb because we can push the cash flows. And the day of reckoning has come on that. I'm going to show you why that doesn't work on that. So let's first just talk about the supply and demand of Airbnb, because this is a great history lesson and I want you to understand it. I was somewhat intrigued and surprised when Airbnb came out. I'm like, how can you do this on a massive scale? I now have the answers and I want to share this with you because there are limitations on how much you can scale any type of real estate business, especially short-term rentals. And Airbnb thought they would master this. Listen, 80 billion is nothing to sneeze at. And it takes quite a team to set up a company to do that kind of volume. But we have to understand this. Supply and demand is way out of whack in this one. What do I mean? Just go in your local market. If you're looking for an Airbnb other than an exotic or destination location, those are always going to be in high demand. Go pick one out in Port St. Lucie. They're everywhere. The list is so long. You can pick whatever you want. And you can pretty much pay whatever you want. The problem is you have no idea what you're getting. Somebody has convinced regular people to turn their own house into an Airbnb, and you're going to get tippy top dollar. You get $200 to $300 a day, and you're going to make a killing. Now, It's just not the truth. And we have to understand it. I hate even talking about Airbnbs, but we have to talk about it. Supply and demand. Supply is so massive right now in Airbnb, and demand is slightly lower. It's just economics 101. It's going to flip over, and it has. You have your choice other than exotic destinations of get whatever Airbnb you want. And this is problematic. And I'm telling you right now, just check it out. Find a city around you that's not an exotic location and test me on this. Are there some peak seasons? Absolutely. But for the most part, when an Airbnb host rents a property, they usually have 2 to 3 months of really good traction, and then they struggle 9 months out of the year. Does that sound like a formula where you can make money? But if it just stopped there, I would be fine with it, but it doesn't. So how did we get such a rapid supply? That's what we need to understand. How did so much inventory hit for short-term rental? Let's walk you through just a quick crash course. Number one, influencers jumped on this fad. And listen, I don't even blame them. Like, I even bought some. I didn't do it because of the influencers. I just thought I could get a good cash-on-cash return. The reality is every influencer in America, if you go back really 3 to 4 years ago, I mean, it was everywhere. Everybody could just make a ton of money with a short-term rental, an Airbnb, a VRBO, and those are the two big predominant ones. And so everyone goes, hey, man, we can do it. We're going to do it. And I will tell you, it was crazy. And then everybody taught you how they did it, and they taught you to like, hey, put a little bit of money down. You can get managers for the whole thing. And okay, that was bad enough. If you don't believe me, go back and look at it. And for the record, I didn't do any Airbnb trainings. Why? Because I was learning just like you guys. It was relatively new to me. And I go, man, if too many people do this, this could be a problem. Now, I've never predicted an Airbnb crash, but there's some special influences that have made this so much worse than what it is. So we had the advent of social media with influencers. I did just a scroll even before I was doing some research on this video. It was hundreds and hundreds of pages. Now, every Airbnb, unfortunately, there are videos like this where it's like doom and gloom. Don't worry, I'm going to tie this in the wholesaling. I have an angle to go with it. So when we do it, you got to keep in mind, okay, Rick, how did it get so bad? I get influencers, but like we had this thing called a pandemic, and you all know what happened. Pandemic, everyone was isolated. People wanted to get out and do things, and you couldn't go to your traditional places. Hotels were very, very hard to get into. And this just hit a spike that like nobody could have seen coming. In fact, it put so much pressure on short-term rentals, you could get whatever rate you want. And for the next year and a half, 2 years, people were buying Airbnbs based on artificially high rates. And it was pretty incredible for about 2.5 years, maybe 3. It started definitely going downhill. And it was the perfect storm. So like the perfect storms, when you get the right atmospheric condition, you get the perfect conditions in the right geographic location. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. I promise you. Now, the pandemic, it was just like, I was even looking to get Airbnb so I could get out. Like it got tired of staying in one place. So it was perfect. But the problem is the pandemic, I wish it was shorter, but it consumed about a 2.5 year period of your life. And everyone made decisions on short-term rentals based on that time. So if supply and demand, influencers didn't help make your decision, and then the pandemic, let's throw in the final recipe that no, it's not the final one. I got one more after it. Ready? Throw on historic low interest rates in mortgages. And dude, this was just a recipe for disaster. So when we had rates like under 3%, people are like, yeah, just go out and finance it, buy whatever you want, Airbnb it, and you'll make an incredible spread. Sound familiar? Honestly, I don't even blame people, but the problem is the roosters have to come home at some time. And the problem is the cash flows have dwindled on these properties. Now, if they got a low interest rate, they still have options, maybe a longer term rental or something like that. But guys, all this happened in an extremely short period of time. And this is why you have such an explosion of like Airbnbs, VRBO, and the short-term rental. And be honest with you, it was like the Wild West. It was like the days when they first started Uber. If you ever remember that, I thought it was like just a great service. And guys, if you use Uber now, it's like, if it's raining outside, they try to charge you more. If there's more traffic, they try to charge you more. Everything is about upcharging everybody. And there's been a huge backlash in short-term rentals, particularly Airbnb. And you realize, if you knew how many pending lawsuits were on these short-term rental companies of this scale, you'd be blown away. They pay people to suppress negative news so they can try to stay in their upper rankings. And I don't think it's correct, but we're going to go there. So I'm going to do one final, what do you call it? A surge. You can call it an outer feeder band coming in. Then influencers decided to go up one more notch with Airbnbs, which I never quite grasped the concept of this. And they're called the Airbnb host manager. And everybody had a 6-figure formula on how to make 6 figures being a host manager on an Airbnb. Honestly, I never even watched one of the videos because I get clickbait when I get it. This seemed like an unrealistic expectation because I got to be honest with you, other than that brief 2-year period, maybe 1.5 years, there's no way that an Airbnb, I'm sure it's possible, but like right now, go see if you can find an Airbnb host manager that makes 6 figures in today's market. Keep in mind, most people doing short-term rentals, they're not even breaking even. So how can you pay a host, even if you paid them 10% or anything like that? We'll get into the numbers. We're going to do that. Guys, the bottom line is, I will tell you right now, dude, the writing was on the wall. Honestly, I've never seen a more perfect storm. Think about this. Think about like everything I said. Influencers shove this down your mouth, which rightfully so. I'm not even blaming it. I never kind of completely bought onto it because it seemed like a fad to me. And fads usually come and go. If you guys haven't noticed since 2015, really 2017, fads have become really pronounced in wholesaling. And what do I mean by that? Like you've had a run up of Airbnb rentals. We've talked about like wholesaling gurus and like the training courses. And when people like the data push, there was an organization that would sit down and show you how to get everyone's phone number skip trace, how to do triple line, even 10-line dialers, and just go, 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 go. And the problem is it was a valid teaching method, but it was abused. And they run hundreds of thousands of people these courses, if not millions. And the direct result of today is why you have such frustration with compliances issues with SMS, with obviously ringless voicemail, and then obviously cold calling, which in my opinion was just a quick money grab, and now we're all paying the price for it. Like, do you really think you can sit there and just pound people like, listen, I like cold calling, but like they're like a 10-line dialer is a bit much. And telling the people to download 20 to 30,000 pieces of data. I'm all about running a business, but the problem is if I have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people doing the exact same thing, it always gets shut down. That's the one thing I've always learned in wholesaling, and that's never going to change. So the writing was on the wall with everything we talked about. We talked about influencers showing you how to do it step by step. Most of them sold a course on it. Shameful, because these courses you might as well use as paperweights. They're useless now. They're not going to help you out at all. What did I say? It's another fad. That's why I try to avoid those as much as possible. We talked about how it absolutely ramped up during the pandemic because the demand, that was a once in a lifetime event, and people built an entire business model off of this 2 and 3 years. That is a huge problem. And then once you throw in the government's assistance with the absolute lowest historic interest rates, they go, Rick, why is that so important? Because people would pay more for a property because it costs less to do the monthly payments on it. And so they made a decision based on that time. Hey, short-term rates are huge. My mortgage is low. Pay the guy an extra 50, 60 grand, which put more pressure on pricing. And guys, I didn't even throw in the housing shortage of inventory, which even made this spectacular, like how much pressure was on the industry. And this is where and then we throw in the 6-figure Airbnb host manager, which I always thought was just kind of, I don't know. If somebody's on here and they do that, like, let me know. And it's just crazy. But so where are we now? Let's talk about the issues right now with Airbnb. So now you've got a history lesson. Listen, you go on the internet and go, hey, let me research the crash of Airbnb. It's endless. Like, we got it. We all got the message on the wall. And because of those historic, I mean, there's two things on there that probably happen maybe once every 50, 75, some could even argue 100 years. Historic low interest rates, and the country freaking, actually the world freaking out about a pandemic. You can't make this stuff up. Plus, at the time it happened, we were at the peak real estate cycle. There was very little inventory. Demand was through the roof, and voila, you have it where you are. So let's talk about the issues now. Okay, so as someone that owns short-term rentals, I'm not picking on Airbnb, it's a VRB, it's all of them, whichever it is, I don't care what it is let's talk about the cost. These costs are outrageous. Like, it's hard enough to make cash flow with insurance rates and property taxes. And most of us, when they're investors, just talking about that side, is we are always going to pay more. Why? We don't live in the properties. And number two, we get very little protection from property tax values. That's scary just to begin with on regular properties. Now throw this in on Airbnbs, ouch. And we all know what's happened in the last 2 years on property tax and property insurance, through the roof. If you're in Florida, it's 10 times worse. I promise you. Oh my God, Rick, nobody wants to insure anybody in Florida. We got to spread the risk out somewhere, guys, or I got to move out to your backyard. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, before I get into the detailed breakdown cost, which I'm not going to spend a lot of energy because it's huge. On average, you are going to pay these host companies 16%. My God, do I have the wrong business model? That is a lot of money, guys. 16%. And so I want you to do it. If you do, let's say the average ticket's around $1,200 in Airbnb from what I saw. 0.16. That means by providing this service, they basically receive around $200. Now multiply this by millions and millions of users and hosts, whatever the numbers are. It's pointless to get into the weeds on it because we don't learn anything. It's a lot of dang money. That's how you get to an $80 billion market cap. The big numbers. So you're 16% before we start talking about numbers. I'm here to tell you, I would be just happy to make a 16% return on my cash on some of my current rentals. And it's not that easy to do. Now, 16% doesn't include all the other crap fees that they all have hidden fees in there. We have a surcharge, we have a processing fee. I'm willing to say these numbers are probably close to 18 to 20%. And we haven't even got into taxes yet, which we're going to get into, which is the craziest part about it. Now, think about this as a host. What happens when people go in? I'm just talking about numbers. Shoot that AC down, fire the heat up, like just let it ride. And here's the problem. They have the right to do it. Don't get me wrong. We all do it when we go to hotels. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of these home systems, they cannot handle the taxing. So if I stay in a house in a week, Florida, in the hot sun in the middle of summer, and I just take that thermostat and I throw it to the left, I put it on like 55, what happens to the AC? It typically freezes up. If you're in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. And then they're going to get calls, they're going to get complaints. Guys, I mean, I've gotten $600-700 utility bills just for a small rental. That's what happens in Airbnb, to the point I had to put an app on it and I had to put safeguards on it because the AC kept like breaking down and freezing up. The guy goes, someone just keeps throwing it all the way to left. They just don't care. Now, remember, hotels are meant for this. Regular houses, condos, townhomes, whatever you want to call them. They were never designed to like beat the crap out of the system. They were designed for regular home use. Sometimes you're not there, you shut it off, whatever, and that's the problem. Don't get me started on the heat one. Now, then we all have to pay sales tax on average between 6 and 7%, sometimes as high as 8%. Like, are you starting to add these numbers up? Like, they get staggering. And this is the real reason why very few people are making money in short-term rentals. And if that wasn't bad enough, anything under 6 months or less in most states, I know there's a couple nuances in it. is you're going to have to pay an identical rate to the sales tax, if not more, for a short-term rental tax. It usually goes to your county, maybe cities, but I know it goes in the county for the area I'm in. And I mean, these numbers, so not only you're paying, and I know what you're going to say, well, the customer pays for it. Well, let me ask you, how competitive can you be if you're already at 14, 50% taxes? And remember, 16% is going to be cut straight to Airbnb. It's challenging, and which makes it a terrible experience for the user because they start adding up all these fees, and it's crazy. Now, it only goes downhill from here. If the numbers haven't freaked you out yet, it should, because if you add up all these numbers, it's a path to make very, very little money on these. Oh, but there's more. Let me keep it going on it. I want people to watch this video before you decide to take on an Airbnb. And by the way, I bought properties with Airbnb. I try to keep them on, and it usually always winds up in the same faction. The next one, Airbnb and VRBO, all their customer service is outsourced overseas. They have actually inundated the virtual assistant market, and I don't know how many people they got working for it. It's got to be an outrageous number. The amount of work it takes to book all this stuff, keep the data, and do the bookings, and deal with customer service, and deal with all the issues you deal with on like a short-term rental, it's got to be an absolute nightmare. So what do? They probably hire hundreds of thousands of international workers for pennies on the dollar. You can just tell, listen, you can tell when you call there and you hear it. It's like sometimes you hear a rooster crowing in the background, stuff like that. I got no issues with them. I use the employees too, but I'm not running an $80 billion company. And they do that. Why? Because they're going to maximize their profits. The problem is by maximizing your profits, you frustrate your customers. And who's your customers? Well, they have a conflict here. Your real customer is the VRB host, but their other customers are people that do the bookings. And who are they going to make ultimately happy? The reality is they're going to make the booking customers their top priority. Why? I've been through this time after time. Do you know I've had someone who recently, I'm not going to use names, somebody booked out one of my units 2 weeks, a really nice place. After 10 days, on the 10th day, they decided, after no contact with me, the host, no issues, and by the way, I know every inch of this property, I know everything that goes on, they decided it was unacceptable after 10 days. Keep in mind, they used every towel, every piece of toiletry, every coffee pod. I put like 25 of them there. I don't need to. Every water I put in the fridge, everything was maxed out. They took all my cleaning supplies. Someone tried to break in my door. I can't prove everything. I can just show the pictures. And then we received a phone call saying, if you don't give us a refund for that full 10 days, we're going to extort you and we're going to leave a bad review. Do what you got to do. Like, I don't want to deal with people like you. And every time these rental companies short-term, they will always side with who? They're always going to side with their end customer, and that's their priority. Right now, people are massively leaving these short-term rental companies because they always side with the end user. They don't side with the host. And that leads me to the next thing is Airbnb, they just no quality control. How are you going to control when you got people outsourced all over the world? It's brilliant on a financial paper, but in the long term, it's never going to make it. And I think it's massively problematic. So if a guy like me, I put everything together. I set up a beautiful place, perfectly renovated, and they're in there 10 days for a 14-day stay. And on day 10, they decided it's unacceptable and said it was the worst experience from day one. It makes no sense to me. Never called, never complained. And I actually have a property manager on this property. There was no issues at all. They said they were extremely happy. And so I'm being abused as a customer. Why do I want to sit there? And ultimately, the bad reviews hurts my future bookings. So they refuse to remove it. I document everything, and like I just move on. Like, why does anybody want to put millions of dollars at stake to get torn up on the back end? And so we talk about quality control. If you don't believe me, go and Google the quality control issues. I already told you these companies have departments to suppress all negative information around it. The amount of crimes that happen on these properties are absolutely staggering. And I'm just talking the United States. Internationally, it's 10 times worse. And for this reason alone, nobody trusts like an Airbnb to a point, unless they have a trusted host manager, and that's fine. But it's just getting to the point a great idea has gone way south. So you have no idea when you book an Airbnb what's going to happen. Like, are they going to be like knocking on the door? Like it's their property. It's, remember, these companies are just intermediaries. They cannot override the owner of the property. They just try to control the booking. So the quality control is way out of control. If you don't believe me, try to call Airbnb and tell them you got a problem on either side, either the host or the booking. It's like a nightmare. I'm always dealing with someone overseas. I'm going to open a ticket. And you're an $80 billion company and we're opening tickets. Like there's nobody that can actually make a decision to solve a problem. Highly frustrating. And for that, one of the reasons. But guys, we're just going to keep going south here because this just gets worse. The quality control is a major nightmare for either side. So if you guys have ever booked at Airbnb, so I've had some wonderful experiences. But honestly, the problem is Airbnb, VRBO, they cannot control the host like to a point because they don't want to own the property. If you want to do it traditionally, go buy a building, build it out, and it's called a hotel. And I get why hotels are so pissed about this, which we're going to talk about that. These are good questions. I'm going to keep going because I've got a lot of experience in this. The quality control, in my opinion, is one of the worst problems with them. There's just no, like a guest can cancel, like I can cancel a booking the day before they show up. Is that fair? No. But stuff happens in real estate. You get floods, you get hurricanes, tornadoes. This stuff happens all the time. There's no way to really protect them against that. So I'm always nervous when I got an Airbnb, especially if I'm traveling and I'm on a tight time frame. Anything can happen. The AC can break. It can be a flood. Completely out of these companies' control. You know what they get when they cancel it? You just get a text. You're not going to get a phone call from anyone. They don't care. So, and I don't think the Airbnb hosts to a point. If they have that big of a problem, that's it. So now, here's the next one. City regulations against short-term rentals. I'm experiencing this locally. It's an absolute nightmare. So Hawaii, San Francisco, New York, Atlanta, Miami, I can go on forever the list. They made it very, very difficult to have a short-term rental. So like in certain parts of the Keys in Monroe County, it's 30 days minimum. So what, people finagle the paperwork, like whatever, but here's the problem, like, what are they going to do to you? Like they're going to put a lien on your house is what they do. It's extremely abiding. This isn't like some hokey pokey, like marketing legislation for wholesaling. These are legitimate things. And if you think it's bad in wholesaling, it's 100 times worse in short-term rentals. Cities don't want them. And keep in mind, like if I have a house in Port St. Lucie and people are trying to raise families, and then there's just constant parties going on, it's not fair to the neighborhood, and I get it. And Airbnb is sitting in some corporate office and people are losing sleep. People are getting upset. Nobody wants to deal with it in their neighborhood. In fact, Airbnb is trying to crack down on what they call the host parties. There's parts in South Florida where people will go out and buy big fat mansions. This happens in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale area all the time. I've personally witnessed it. Big houses, 10,000 square feet plus. A host rents it out. Remember we talked about that host manager? I think this is like a short-term rental party host. And then they'll pay an outrageous, they'll pay $5,000 to use it for a weekend, whatever. I think most people have a 2-3 day rental. And then they throw these like rave parties and like, I mean, they will literally collect $50,000 in fees and then they'll just walk out and that's it. And people are calling the police. The police can only do so much. The neighbors are calling. And for this one alone, quality control, I always told you, it's never going to happen. So a lot of cities have a 3-strike rule. The first one, you get a warning. The second one, you get a fine and you got X amount of time. The third one, they says, if you ever get a violation again, they're going to hit you with like a $500 fine each time, and they're going to put a lien on your house. So if you think you can work around this, you can't. And honestly, I think they're right about it to a point. I think it's gotten out of control, but it's like, so if I own the property next to you and I bought it as a vacation home, I just don't want to see people partying and just constant rotation. Nobody takes care of the property. I kind of get it. So, which leads us to the next thing. All these regulations have led to permit fees, as if 15% in taxes was not enough for you. You now have to pay another permit. How much to get a permit? It's between $300 and $800, depending on what city, what county, and what town you're in. You have to get a permit. This is your government's right to basically take a right away from you, although they do have some legitimate concerns. I'd be the first one to tell you. And then they're going to sell it back to you. So, and if you violate these permits, you're going to have problems. And so this is an additional cost you're going to have to put on your Airbnb. And then you're going to have a third party that oversees everything you do to make sure it's legit. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you do not live near your Airbnb, forget it. I've got a manager. I'm like, okay, listen, it's hard enough to manage regular single family houses. Airbnbs, it is constant. I want you to think about this. Do you know how much I pay on cleaning fees for just one unit in a 12-month period? You're never going to believe this. Let's talk about it. Guys, what do you think the average cleaning fee for an average 1,000 to 1,500 square foot house on Airbnb? Those are the small ones too. Now, I'm not talking about the big mansion houses. How much do you think it would cost? I'd love to hear. Love to hear. So I'll tell you, because I know exactly what it is. The bottom line is, it's between $120 and $150 a month. You go, Rick, look at Kevin hitting it right on the nose. How can it be so much? They're not regular cleanings. Remember, they've got to wash the towels, wash the linens. They got to put toiletries in place, soaps. They got to unload the dishwasher, put the dishes back, take inventory of everything. And so the average cleaning time, if someone's really, really efficient, is right around 3 hours. Well, that's $50 an hour. I'm like, you have to train them. It's not as easy as you think it is. And yeah, they fold the toilet paper all like real nice. And this is crazy. And sometimes I have one of my units will flip over 2 to 3 times a week. So 150, that's $450 in 1 week. Nuts. On my income statements, my average cost is around $5,000 in cleaning a year. Why? Either you get to do it or you pay someone to do it. Now, I much prefer to pay someone to do it, but let me tell you, how does $5,000 sound on your financials when you do this? Because nobody told you about this. $5,000 is a lot of money. If you go, hey, I'm going to do it, I'm telling you, I've done them in buildings I own with a commercial aspect. It's still brutally hard. And I'm talking about commercial machines, the whole thing. What are you going to do if you're 10 miles away, 20 miles away, 30 miles away? And don't forget, if you have to do a quick turnaround, you even have to pay more. You usually have to pay $175 to $200. And now they got to be on standby. But like, think about it. Like I own quite a few units, and I'm like, why are the cleaning fees so high? And like, they kind of walk me through it. I get it, but it's a lot of money. These people have to be on demand. I don't even fault them for it. So to have a cleaning service on demand. So typically when you have your own home clean, you either have it cleaned once a week, once a month, or every other week. It's predictable. They know when to show up. You probably get a much, much better deal, and they don't have to do all your toiletries and stuff like that. Take it over to a like a short-term rental, $5,000 per unit. Nuts. So if I own 10 units, that's $50,000 just in expenses. Nobody showed me that one. And listen, we can do it. Trust me, once you start it once, you'll never want to do it again. It will literally take 3 to 4 hours of your time. And who's got that kind of time on demand just to get it going? It's absolutely nuts. Thank you. The cleaning fees will kill you alone. And guys, listen, here's the bottom line you have to understand about this too. Let me do this here. Copy. If you guys want to jump on and do some lives, I will go ahead and put the link out there because I forgot to do it earlier. And let's go. So here's the one factor. Oh, no, wait, let me do one more. And then if you have enough working against it, who do you think's most pissed off? Who do you think's most furious about like Airbnb? What industry decides, man, this isn't good for us in the long run, we need to figure out? It's the hotel business. Hotels, motels. So they hire these things called lobbyists. Most hotels, the Hilton, the Ritz's, the Marriott, they're all owned by pretty influential people. They've been swinging the bat on DC forever on this. And honestly, they're starting to win the war. And they're going to try to snuff out all rentals without having a special license and permits, which they do have. And I got to be honest with you, a hotel, although they try to smack you on the head when you get in there, if you touch that bottle of water, it's like $10. If you touch the alcohol, if you touch the food, and we all know not to touch it, God forbid you need a late night snack and you go down to the lobby area and it's like $10 for a thing of Skittles. Listen, that just comes with the territory. So, but the problem is right now is when you book an Airbnb, I have 15% on taxes minimum. Then they put in a cleaning fee between $75 and $300. By the way, the cleaning fees on the host side have really gone down to almost nothing because we're all competing. So if somebody has a $300 cleaning fee and I have a $100 cleaning fee, they're going to factor that in the equation. And the competition has gotten just butt ugly. And I'm just like here to tell you, we have to understand that when we do it. So if you understand that, the hotel lobbyists, they've spent years, they're starting to win, and people are tiring on this event. Now, I'm going to leave you with the last thing, and then we'll have a discussion on here. You've got to understand this. Listen to me on this. Most of the time, you guys are working for free. So if you do an Airbnb, you don't pay yourself a salary, and you don't. Let me tell you, when someone books, you gotta set up, take beautiful pictures. Oh, fun. Everyone's so excited to make an Airbnb. You get nice furniture, you make it look so pretty, and then the damn thing sits. Now, what they don't tell you is when you first sign up, you have to get like a super host status. So they're going to hide your listing. They're going to drive you nuts on purpose. Why? Because the people who pay the most money, the people who have the most bookings, they get the top rankings. So then you got to pay like extra advertising to even get it exposed. And I believe you've got to get 3 to 5 bookings before you can even qualify to be a super host. And the problem is you have no traction. I don't want to take a risk and stay at someone's new place. I have no idea how crazy this person is. And don't even get me started on the reviews. It's a ridiculous process. So somebody mentioned here earlier that the host gets to review the user. There's a caveat to this. And I believe these companies, particularly Airbnb, have completely manipulated this to their favor. So the crazy part is you have to review them before they review you. Do you understand how screwed up that is? Meaning one's dependent upon the other. And so there's never one person doesn't put in the review, the other person in the review, and it goes up like neutral. It's completely opposite. So if I put in a negative review about someone that used one of my events, they're 100% going to trash you. So think about this. Airbnb, VRBO, they incentivize you to put positive reviews on people. It's ridiculous. And I get it. They are the intermediary and they're trying to get this done. Do you really think it's fair to do a review like this? Ridiculous. So if I go, man, these people were absolute nightmares, I'm guaranteeing myself a negative review, and negative reviews will kill your listing. In fact, to the point where the people will call and extort you if you don't do this. The customers of these short-term rental companies, they all know the power of the review and they will hold it over your head. Now, I can burn them and put a negative thing in it. It's going to affect them in the future, but it's not worth it for my entire account for one ill customer. And this is the problem you're going to have with the reviews on it. So here's the problem. You guys don't pay yourself a salary. Think about this. You got to deal with the bookings. You got to text. And remember, they want pictures. They always want information. Airbnb is not going to do this for you. You have to do this. It's nonstop. Like I can see right now, I already have 6 requests on here for people looking to do a bookings at the end of this week. So I got to go in, I got to log, and then, hey, Rick, is it, yeah, are there umbrellas there? Are there beach chairs? Yeah. Hey, can I dock a boat there? Here's the dock master. You got to call him directly. Dude, how much time do you have? And then right before they come, you've got to send them the information to get in, a gate code, where the key is, whatever it is, access to the lobby, the elevator, whatever it is. It's nonstop. And then once you get in there, they'll pound you with 3 million questions. Airbnb does not answer them for you. And then here's the 2 biggest ones you'll get every time. Can I check in early? Can we stay late? And they constantly push it. And how much time do you have? Then you have to coordinate the cleanings. You got to like figure out payment. And then by the time you get what you want from Airbnb, all the companies for that, you're going to get it way after the fact if they've used it. And it's just exhausting. And imagine doing this over and over, hundreds of guests. What's your time worth? Look at the statement right here. Nobody factors in what it costs to run this. You have to be the maintenance person. You have to be the person at the front desk. You have to do reservations. You have to do bookings. Dude, it's exhausting. Like, guys, listen, pay attention when it comes to this stuff, because it's very few times can you make a return on investment, much less a cash on the investment. And you have to understand. So I have someone here who mentioned that they did kind of basically did the intermediary between Airbnb and the host. And I just, man, boy, I've never even sat down and talked to anyone or interviewed anybody in that position. But guys, think of all this stuff. And so here we are. How does it affect wholesaling? I go after Airbnb listings all day long, especially ones with negative reviews. In fact, I believe it's a new opportunity in wholesaling, because when these properties sit, so the peak time to do this, guys, is find the off season in your market. I don't know, dude. I see a new lead source in wholesaling. I'm frustrated with a lot of my short-term rentals, and I would consider them selling. Now, I don't need to sell it, but like I've lost plenty of money with Airbnbs. In fact, I would go on to say that if I found 10 people in Airbnbs, 7 out of the 10 would lose money. Now, I like the write-offs of the depreciation, but I'm shifting my focus. Only exotic locations keep the short-term rental status, and you have to charge an exotic fee to make it work. So if the average hotel is $225, I got to be at least double that. Otherwise, it's not worth my time. I'm not a hotel. A hotel has an entire staff. And guys, you have to value what you do. And working for free in your business, there's a point where you have to get a return on it. The problem is the demand for these things are going down. The costs are going through the roof. And for this reason, I would not touch it. Now, I'm going to give you a couple little warnings. Is number one, there will be a fad that replaces Airbnbs. How do you know it? Just look for the influencers. They're going to shove it down your mouth. In fact, I've already seen them. I haven't even really looked into it. Do we have a housing affordability issue? Absolutely. I don't think anybody disagrees in this country. How we attack it, honestly, it's not easy. So number one, the best way to really attack it from the government side, but I have no say in that. And I don't think it's ever really going to happen. So let's just leave it at that. There was a candidate decide, we're going to give a credit for a house buy. Like that never works. It just jacks the price up higher. So the next side is, what can we do on our side as wholesalers and entrepreneurs to solve the housing problem? Here's the problem. Most influencers will give you a way to kind of solve it, but it's really good in theory, but it typically doesn't work. Let me give you an example. In Florida, we have a lot of demand for people who want to like share spaces and stuff like that. And I'm all about like people living together and stuff. But the problem is, number one, if you think you're going to get to rent the rooms out in your place and offset it. So I'm seeing in my local market, people are renting rooms out for $1,000. So I've gone and verified this with city officials, because that's what a good entrepreneur should like. Is this even a realistic? So here's the problem, guys. People explain on how to make money. And you can make money all sorts of ways until you get caught. And so the problem with like co-sharing, mingling, I think it's really cool, but that you have to have the right piece of real estate set up for it. And you have to be in the right neighborhood. You can't be in like family neighborhoods and do this. So I've done sober houses. I've sold them. There's a ton of controversy on sober houses. And I'm all about whatever helps people, but you can't drop them in regular neighborhoods. In my opinion, they need to be like a kind of a commercial status. So in my area, to do a sober house, you have to have a special permit, and it's not easy to get. In the Wild West days, I wholesale. I sold a lot of houses, the sober houses. And honestly, I don't know if it was the best move at the time for the community. I've been doing this 22 years, and I look back on some of my previous sales. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I sold to that guy. So what are we doing now? Like we have an affordability problem. How do we fix it on our side? We give houses away for free? That's never going to happen. The problem is it's the property tax and the insurance, which is killing everybody. Interest rates are one thing. They're always going to fluctuate. So before you buy into anyone's scheme, I'm not calling anyone out because I really haven't seen any details. If you're going to do a co-op, a co-sharing, there is a technique called a co-op. It is expensive from the legal side. It's basically where you take a big property and then you can sell off pieces to it. Kind of cool, but it's expensive to do the legal work on it. The other one is like, hey, just rent rooms out. Here's the problem. Go to your city and ask if you're allowed to do it. So in most of Florida, if you rent out any more than one room in your house to a non-family member, they already have laws in place and they will attack. So you'll be on the code violations list and I'm going to be calling you. There's rules in place so you can't put 5 different families in one house. Now, if it's set for it and the family's all some sort of relatives, it's perfectly legal. The problem is if I have 5 different leases for one house, I can almost assure you, unless you have a special permit or you have a commercial designation for your property, you're going to have problems, period. So I've watched this over and over. Even way back when, 15, 16 years ago, I would find old commercial properties and we would divide them up. I was so smart back then. And I would divide them up and I would put, so it was down by the boat dock. So I'd have commercial fishermen come in. They were always looking for a place to stay. I would subdivide them. People did this forever. And guess what? I got a notice on the door saying I'm violating code. I'm running a rooming house without correct authorization. And you know what? They were right. And I gave up. I just stopped fighting it. I've watched it in Port St. Lucie. I've watched it in Stuart. I watched it in Fort Pierce. A lot of areas like I'm in the area. Once you get reported and it gets investigated by the city, if you have multiple leases without the correct authority, they're going to shut you down. And so I've seen like people talk about, I'm all about, we have to find a way to just do it legally. I don't. So if you think you're going to take a go, well, I'm going to find more cash flow by renting out your room. So if I had 4 rooms and I got $4,000 a month and the average rate is $2,500, I get it. But are you considering your neighbors, anything like that? So I'm just giving you an example so nobody gets caught with their pants down in this situation. And I want you to understand that. So you can say you're all family. So just as what if they say they're all family? So the family shouldn't have 5 different leases, though. It should be one lease. And that's, I think, where you're going to have a problem. And keep in mind, who's going to run you under the bus on these types of deals? I promise you, someone's going to get in a fight. Someone's going to smack someone. Someone's going to hit someone's car in the parking lot, and they're going to report you. It's not if, it's when. And so I'm just giving you full disclosure. We need to fix affordability house, but I don't know that we can just start chopping up houses. Now, if you're considering doing it, I don't know. I'm not going to train you how to do it because I haven't figured out how to do it legally. Make sure you get permission from your city before you do it, because once you start having multiple leases on, especially a single family home, it's just a matter of time before you're going to have a problem with it. Why? Think about it. You need to have a multifamily that's designated. So if I had a 4-plex, they would understand if you had 4 leases. If I have a single family home, say in like Port St. Lucie, Stuart, there maybe 2 leases, maybe, but 4, they're gonna be like, dude, you're out of your mind. And they're gonna start talking to people and it's gonna be problematic for you. So please keep in mind that I'm concerned about this trend I see going on. And the only reason I say it is we talk about fads. So we saw Airbnb. We all kind of saw the writing on the wall. We've seen, so we all, listen, you all saw the Novation fad. Like it's like, oh, it's the greatest thing. And it gets pushed by influencers. And then I'm not saying you can't do it, but like it's not in the wrong hands. They are detrimental and it's problematic. So I've already tried this thing on Affordability House way back in the day, and I got in trouble for it. And I don't want to get in trouble again, and I think it's responsible we talk about it. We always see us as marketers, especially wholesalers, we're really good at identifying problems and pitching a solution to them. The execution's a whole nother ball of wax. And that's the problem with the affordability of housing. And the other problem is I've looked into having apartment complexes built on some of my vacant land properties. And I know a lot of you guys doing land out there, which I think is great. Dude, the cost to build these things are tremendous. Anything that has a commercial designation is 2 to 3 times the normal construction price if you know what you're doing. And that's the problem with it. So you've all seen these cookie cutter apartments. My God, Florida is buried in them. Forget about the cannabis industry. There's so many apartments popping up. But here's the one thing is they know exactly how to build them. They know the exact cost per unit. They get through the they do a lot of political greasing, and they just go out and negotiate land. I don't really have the ability to do it. I don't know how to build a 500-unit apartment complex. I'm sure I could, but I'd go broke doing it. And so they just do it over and over. It's just Wall Street money, and that's where everyone's going. If you really think you can create that in single-family homes, I think someone's selling you a solution that is, number one, irresponsible. Number two, you can't, I don't think you can legally do it. I'm sure there's spots you can do it. If you're out in a rural area, knock yourself out. But once you get close to a metropolitan area, they already have books on it. Everyone's tried it. Don't be cute and thinking you can beat this. So the last thing I want you to do is buy a property thinking you can rent out every room because somebody said you could rent out every room and solve the affordability problem. We've already tried it. You can't, I'm just telling you. Maybe you can get away with it, but eventually you will get rented out. And the last thing is, we talked about Airbnbs. Did you know an Airbnb rental? So Airbnb says you get coverage built in. No, you don't. Let me tell you how this works. They will represent you if there's a claim on it. And they're like, listen, Airbnb's renting it, you're not. It's not that simple. You will be named in the lawsuit and you will have to get representation. Ask me how I know. Number two, if you think a valid homeowner's regular policy, especially on a single family home, is going to cover you for an Airbnb, the minute they find out you did short-term rentals, they won't pay the claim. Hell, it's hard enough to get them to pay in legitimate cases. So you have to go out, and I had to buy what they call a short-term rental policy. It's enormous, and it's got a huge deductible. It really covers you for the liability. It can cover you for like some loss of income in the event of a catastrophic event, but nobody ever factors that into their numbers. In fact, most people are completely uninsured what they do in Airbnb. So if you have a mortgage on an Airbnb and a regular homeowner's policy and you do short-term rental, most likely if an event were to occur, now they might cover you once and then they're going to blackball you from any type of insurance, but these agreements specifically say no short-term rentals. You are going to be cooked because when they depose everyone, they're going to find out you had a rental. They're going to pull out they're going to subpoena the notes from the company, Airbnb, VRBO, and you're in big trouble. Now, if you think a short-term rental has a lot of insurance problems, imagine a shared house would be an absolute nightmare. Why? Because it's an incredible risk to the insurance companies. People that don't know each other tend to get in confrontations and have disputes, and disputes lead to fights. And fights lead to accidents, and accidents lead to major lawsuits. So you understand why I'm concerned with the growing trend. Now, take it as this. Why not take wholesaling to Airbnb? And we've got to test this out because I have not done this extensively. I have bought failed Airbnbs. They were by accident, not on purpose. But I would love to get some feedback for you on doing the marketing point. So finding Airbnbs that are, I guess you can tell they're vacant by looking at them, but look at the ones with the negative reviews. holy crap, you might have something there with negative reviews. Because if you got a bunch of negative reviews in Airbnb, you're never going to rent the thing out. And if you do, it's going to be very, very low quality stuff. I think that's it. So let's jump on some people, do some lives here. So I agree with the problem with marketing the Airbnb for wholesaling is they are delusional. They're absolutely crazy on their prices. So I'm not endorsing it, but if somebody wants to test it out, I can tell you there's a lot of frustrated Airbnb owners out there because I meet them all the time. They're like, and the problem is we're all cutting ourselves. And here's the big problem is it is just a race to the bottom. And where's the bottom going to be? I'm hoping one day that the supply washes out, us wholesalers buy the real crap, and then there would be a premium for a short term. How far away is that? You're looking at 2 to 3 years to wash this type of supply out. In fact, if it wasn't for the Airbnb supply, I don't know where we would be on supply just in rental, in real estate in general. So that's my spin on Airbnb. Guys, I'm just telling you, if you added up all the numbers and you still made a profit, I promise you didn't account for all the time. The average Airbnb, I'd assume you probably spend 100 to 150 hours per year doing, I got to call the cleaner. I got to respond to this. I got to do this repair. I got to get the tech out there to fix this. I got to call Airbnb because we have a dispute. It's beyond exhausting. And keep in mind, I paid people to do this and still lost. I even did one point where in 2019, I did them myself and I hated every minute of it. And then I hired other people to do it. So if I can't make money volunteering my time with the skills I have, I'm just telling you, you're going to have a long shot on it. Now, occasionally there's an exception, but someone needs, so I'll give you a couple ideas. If you want to do a short-term rental, ideas is figure out how you can get some traction on your own. If you had to use one of the companies just to get through the first year, that's fine. But I mean, 16% is absolutely outrageous. And remember, you got to push a lot of these costs back onto your renters, and that's a little bit of the problem on it. So Kevin says, is there anything good about Airbnbs? Listen, they're good from the user side. Sometimes I've gotten some incredible deals. I'm like, how can you rent me a house like this, 500 a night with 6 bedrooms on the water, with a pool, a spa, and everything? How? I'm thinking like, how? I go, someone just needs a tax write-off. And I think that's where Airbnb is going. The people that want the tax write-offs and the exotic locations. I like tax write-offs. I just don't think it's even worth it with the Airbnb when it's all said and done. It never comes close to breaking even. I mean, it does. But remember, you're working for free. So you didn't really account for the cost. You don't have it insured properly. You already know that. And what's your time worth answering all this? Yeah, I can pay someone 50, 75 grand a year to manage it. But the only way that works is if I have at least 10 to 15 rentals. That's the only way I paid somebody. If you have one, you don't have it. And you go, no, you'll do it, but you won't keep up with it because it's going to annoy the crap out of you. And listen, Airbnb is good from the user standpoint, but there is risk. And from that, use the crap out of it because there's never been a better time to book a short-term rental than right now. The choices are just absolutely insane. So let's jump on and answer some questions here. And let's do this. Who I got here? Okay. What? Capital K, you there?
Hey, what's up, Rick?
Hey, man. How you doing? I hear you loud and clear. Where are you calling from?
Grocery store. Well, to give you, I was just walking you
today.
Well, since I'm a Chicago boy, I had to get a couple mangoes. I know you got an abundance of it down there in Florida, and some grilled chicken.
No idea. It's like these things grow like weeds around here, man.
I wish I got
mangoes. You know what mangoes attract around my area that creates a problem?
Wow.
Iguanas.
Oh, interesting.
They love them.
And I guess you can't do that.
A mango tree never stops growing. I had to deal with one on out on the island this a couple of years ago. The mango tree, I want to say it was 60 some odd feet. And the problem is the mangoes were dropping down and 2 people were hospitalized. The guy goes, I can't, the amount of property damage. they are like they're badass trees, man. Like, but
Like
the
it
fruit,
hit him like in the head. Then he got mad. I
what's
mean,
that?
then the mango like hit him in the head or something.
Well, when it comes from 60 feet up, like some of them are like a pound and a half.
Right.
It's brutal, man. If I mean, it'll like we have problems in Florida with falling coconuts. Like, and I've experienced it twice. Almost got killed because
Wow.
remember they got a sharp and they're a hard tusk. Mango's a little bit more forgiving, but they're a heavy fruit, man. They're good, they're great, but like when people plant them and they walk away, mango's the type of tree you don't have to fertilize, you don't have to water. It'll grow in a warm climate, like no issues at all. I mean, they grow like a weed. It's a really cool fruit, but I hear you, man.
Hey, let me get to my question. Okay, short story and then a long story. Short story is it's a vacant land in Chicago. The owner had it for at least like 15 years. She got taxes with the city, and she had like a bank lien on it, right? So now she's giving it to me, just kind of like a quick claim deed, right? So I know I can get the taxes handled, but how do I square things up with the bank? Like, do I subject to it or what I'm saying?
So,
Because
is the bank in the process of a foreclosure on it?
they did a foreclosure, well, she did a bankruptcy, and she said they didn't even want it back. They were just kind of like, "You can take it."
Yeah. So, I mean, is it a single family house or what is it exactly?
No, it's a vacant land in Chicago.
So the problem is she's been discharged from the debt. So here's what happens in like a bankruptcy. So you have a piece of property, a land or a house, and then you have the individual. The bankruptcy, if they do it correctly, absolves the individual. But the mortgage or the deed of trust is still attached to the house. So the only way to completely wipe it out is going through a foreclosure process, which obviously you wouldn't do, or you've got to get permission from the bank to release it. And that's where you wind up like in the short sale hell. And because it was discharged in bankruptcy, I assume it was.
I don't know. I checked the property records. Well, excuse me. Checked the property records downtown, and I can see where she went to court all those times. But I don't see nothing where the bank released it or the bank said, "Hey, we square" or anything like that.
They're not going to square. Banks are like, I mean, I get their position. Remember, the bank just services the loan.
Right.
There is a loan on, not a loan, a lien on the title. And there's only two ways to absolve it. Actually, three. The customer's already out of the picture and they've absolved themselves in bankruptcy. Number two, you ask someone, the bank, can you please take off the lien? The odds of that are slim to none, buddy. And they'll consider a short sale, but on land, they're not big fans of doing that. And I already told you, you can't wholesale any type of short sales. Someone's recently been made an example of it. And there's people that have business partners that do all that crap.
Well, I remember you speaking about that, and I was just gonna just buy it outright and just take title. I need about like $20K to make it work, so I mean, I got that. I can do that.
Who would you pay $20K to?
We do to the city because she's just selling it for me for $1. Well, $1, but it's a quick claim deed.
So the problem is it's not the city; it's the bank's lien on the property, correct?
Yes.
So
because I can get the city right, I can pay the city the $20,000. That's easy.
Yeah.
But the bank, I don't know what the bank wants or how much or whatever. I don't see none of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what's the piece of land worth? Is my other question.
40K.
Yeah. So just ask the previous owner how much she took a loan out on it. And by the way, you should be able to look it up on public record. Also, it's odd that she would have a loan on a vacant piece of land because that's not the norm in banking. They like to do houses. They don't like to do vacant land.
I asked her about it. She said she had something next door, and the next door came with it.
Okay, I got it. So I'm just gonna cut to the chase for you.
Come on with it.
I don't think you have much there. I'm just being honest with you. even if you get it, like the question mark is what would the bank take for it? The bank is going to make it notorious hard, which you're looking at a 6 to 9 month process at best case scenario.
Well, I would say this is.
paperwork.
Well, I would say the really why I'm really like eager about this one is because it's literally like one block from multi-million dollar
Okay, so
multi-million.
here's one strategy that might work that is the least amount of risk with the highest reward, because there's no wholesaling on this. Find out the tax status on that property. Have you looked up the property taxes and see if they're paid?
No, yes, but no, they haven't been paid.
Okay, so how much are they roughly?
About 18 grand with fees. That's why I'm coming out like
grand for property taxes.
She hasn't paid in like 15 years.
So listen, the only money I would do this if you, and I wouldn't do this, but it's a play, is if you buy a tax deed certificate. Do you understand what those are?
No.
So all it is say I own a piece of property and I say I owed $5,000 in taxes for the year. And by the end of the year, I didn't pay it. They don't go away. So what the city does, so they get their money for the fire department, the police department, so they can.
Oh, okay. I guess.
Is they sell a certificate, and people bid on it. Here's how it works. It usually starts at 18%, and people bid it down. And whoever wants to take the lowest rate gets it. Some people, here's the secret, vacant land, most people don't want to bid on it because they don't see a path to getting it done. Here's the really cool part is, if you buy it, I'm not going to say it's guaranteed. If it's a house, it's guaranteed to get paid. But I was hoping it was like 5 grand or less. 18 grand is a lot of money for a value of a property. Are you sure that's just the property tax? And are you putting fees on it?
I'm putting $2,000 of fees on it because I went to Cook County and looked up all the records that they say approximately exactly what it is. They don't add the fees, but they told me exactly what it is.
So you need to find out what the property tax bill due is, because if you buy a tax certificate, nobody can take that property till you at least get paid back whatever money you put into it plus the interest rate.
Right.
And that also gives you first right of foreclosure, not first right of foreclosure, but after 2 years, unfortunately, a year or two, depending on how it is in Chicago, they have a redemption period, all this other crap. You then have the ability to file a foreclosure on it. But then you got to pay a lawyer to do that. And then if nobody bids on it, you can wipe out all the liens, everything on the property, and then you get it back if nobody else bids or you decide not to bid anymore. So typically you buy a tax certificate, say it's 5 grand, and then say after a year or two, you decide to foreclose because no one's paying you back and you're in debt. And then it goes to auction. Well, if somebody pays $100,000 for the property, you get your 5 grand plus your interest. That's it. So it's kind of a backdoor strategy, but it's safe. But paying the city outright would be, I would never do it. And do me a favor, do not have it quitclaimed in your name, because if the city decides that there's some sort of violation or something on the property, you are now solely responsible for it.
Well, it's a lot of trees and stuff, so I was planning on cutting it down. But yeah, I was thinking about the tax sale certificate thing. But we have that every 2 years.
Specifically each year, and see the amount. Don't worry about the city stuff, because if that gets foreclosed on, and I'm not a lawyer, you got to run this by, that is the path to clear the title, and you could get a property for what you have into it. But remember, that means nobody else really bids on the property or bids any higher than what you do. So obviously it would have to be bidded up. So say she owed 5 grand in taxes. Then you just want to make sure it gets bid up to 5 grand. If it doesn't get it back, the 5 grand, you basically apply for title for the property and you get it. But you get it wiped out of the lien and everything else that's on it. And I assume the city would work with you and go, okay, we'll give you a clean slate, but you got to do this, 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 and this. I just think there's easier ways to make money. It just sounds really, really messy. So I would just look at the tax certificate and see what's owed on it. And that's a lot safer than outright paying someone for it, because then you have a legal debt obligation. Somebody eventually has to do something with that property and pay you plus interest.
Right. Yeah, it's every 2 years we got a tax sale in Chicago, so that'd be 2026.
Why did Chicago do everything differently? It's
Man, you gotta
crazy.
ask them, man.
No, I know.
Even what you talking about with the Airbnbs, I got one too. And everything you saying is 100% on point. But
Am I
even
right?
on
Like
my right,
it's
even on
tough.
my block, they trying to have the disputes because people would have parties at my house,
Oh,
fighting in front of
yeah,
my house, and
yeah.
now the people they telling the older men like, yeah, I got this over there. So now
Yeah.
I got to tell people like, yeah, you got to chill. Like if you want to come over here,
So also keep this in mind too that like HOAs are very anti short-term
yes,
rentals,
absolutely,
and most of
yeah,
them are now writing in all their docs. I've seen it everywhere. Dude, condos, forget about it. Like
yeah.
most condos have a 30, most of them have a 90-day rule. So like
Mhm.
we're so squeezed in such a small market. I'm like, I'm looking at this. I look at my account and I go, why do I put up with this crap? He goes, well, and honestly, I've converted them all to like much longer term rentals, or I just
Yeah.
have like honestly, here's how I look. Here's one way to solve the. Let me let you go. I'm not going to tie you up, man. I appreciate it, buddy. What's your name, by the way?
Name's Larry.
Larry. Okay, let's find you some other deals, but look at the tax thing on that one. Okay,
All right, thanks, brother.
I got it. Where was I going with this? We're talking about the housing affordability issue. So here's my idea, and tell me if I'm on to something here, something for here. So most of you guys are starting out wholesaling aspiration dreams. Awesome. Like you're in the right place for it. But think about this. If I can't control the government and the housing, and I can't control how they tax the properties, I can't control the insurance companies. Unfortunately, our hands are tied unless, in my opinion, you want to like take a risk in breaking the law and try to shove a bunch of people in the house. You better make sure you have clear designation if you're going to put a bunch of people in a house. Like, do not chance it, because trying to unwind it is a nightmare. Like, and think about all the people and the families you affect when you put it in there. So here's what I thought. I've talked to like Zach about this. Tell me what you think. Is we talk about if I'm going to hire an employee and say you're going to pay him $75,000 a year, is why don't I just offset their salary to the cost of the housing, a reasonable number, offer them incentives, and it works. Now I've put plenty of my employees in like my subject twos and stuff like that. And there's multiple sides of the equation, because you got to be careful when you hire an employee. If it doesn't work out, how are you going to get them out of the property? You have what we call a lease. But here's my brilliant idea, and I'm going on record right now with it. Why don't we trade housing for employment? So if I have 3 or 4 units in an area where I have an office and I need staff, it's hard enough for them to come up first, last security. It's hard enough for them to find a place. And it's like they go, Rick, I want to work there. I just can't find any affordable housing. If you solve that part of the equation for them, it kind of makes sense. You got to do all the paperwork correctly, but you solve 2 problems. One stone, two, or is it 2 birds, 1 stone, whatever it is. And maybe that's how you attack the affordability. I mean, listen, I'm open to like talking to anybody about this, because we can't just keep coming up with these ridiculous theories like just rent out each room or just subdivide the house, make it a co-op. Nobody ever talks about the expense and can you actually do it? And that's my problem with some of these solutions is a lot of times we throw mud up on the wall and see if it sticks. And like we're all shocked when it doesn't work. I'm like, nobody asked any questions. And that's some of the problems we have with influencers and stuff. And listen, you all like, guys, I fully expect gurus to attack me and Zach all day. In fact, I'm not going to say I encourage it, but the minute a guru starts agreeing with me and Zach, I would be highly suspect until I'm okay with it. So if you want to attack, like if you're going to spend an entire show on like attacking us, like I guess I'm like kind of flattered in a way. Like you have nothing else going on in your business just to say, hey, dude, I've been doing this 22 years. You've got to like we have to understand, like, if you're going to take like an entire segment of your platform and dedicate it to like to me and Zach, bravo. Like you just give free publicity, and like you're going to have to do that across the board. Like I don't get it. Like, I mean, I guess I get it. To me, I don't know. What you focus on is what you get. So if you're going to focus on me and Zach, just keep recording videos. Like I don't know what else to tell you. So making all these claims, like I've never seen anyone spend so much time on it, but Guys, I've always told you, I want you to understand it. I challenge every guru. Put your course out there and publicly trade it. There's a reason they won't do it. Why are me and Zach the only people that put our course out there 100% with no barriers? By the way, I have hundreds of gurus in my courses. So I have software that analyzes your IP address. I can instantly tell who it is. I know every one of you. I know everything like you do inside stuff. Like, so you got to understand what, oh, I used a fake email address. Dude, your IP is your IP. It's like an address to your house. So I've learned in this business, you're going to have just a certain amount of haters. My haters, and me and Zach's haters, are gurus. What do we define a guru? A guru has a big, giant course sale. That's my definition of a guru. It's not needed anymore. Do I fault them for doing it? Absolutely not. If the free market provides for it, the reason they're so upset with me and Zach is because we are a threat to their business. And listen, old business models die. I used to have a landline. I don't use it anymore. Now I got a cell phone. Old business methods die. And today we're talking about Airbnbs. It's, in my opinion, is a dying business model. And so when you sign up for this, if you're going to teach coaching like you did 20 years ago, and keep recording. Listen, if you ever see a guru endorse me and Zach, I would be concerned. And so you just validate my point more and more when you record content that has nothing to do with you. Sorry. So by the way, I've been doing this 22 years. The amount of people that duplicate stuff, like you can't own everything. I love when people try to own, I own this clause. I created this contract. You didn't. Do you know wholesaling's been around over 230 some odd years? We've all gotten it from someone. So everyone's got to stop claiming I invented this. I don't even do that. Like I've learned from plenty of people before me. But the reality is, man, like I just, listen, if a guru endorses me and Zach, then I'd be scared. So when they do it, they just reemphasize exactly what our stance is. The old way of teaching wholesaling, which is what, but it's why they all go to like the same seminars and everything like that, so they can like copy each other's, hey, we'll offer this upgrade. And so there, freewholesaling.com. It's 100% free. So if you want to put me and Zach to bed, put your course out there and make it public. Your paid course, put it out there and show it to everybody. I don't hold anything back in freewholesaling.com. It is the most thorough, comprehensive course there is. I love when people throw like caution to the wind and like, you know, just be careful, because there's a lot of stuff people have done in the past that is out there. And like, that's it. I don't hate anyone, but I already told you, all gurus, they are our haters, and I'm fine with it. In fact, I'll tell you, if you don't have enough haters, you're not doing this business right, because I'd be pissed too if I paid $5 or $6 grand, $3 grand to someone and Zach and Rick gave you the exact information for free. But I'm going to leave you with this. Nobody has more testimonials than me and Zach. And here's the best part. I've never asked for one testimonial. They've been freely given. I don't do Trusted Pilot. I don't do all these. So the gurus teach you, grab them while you have them. They get that live testimony. They actually give you an app to do it. Listen, I know when we look at products we buy on Amazon, we look at reviews. You should do the same when doing a guru. If you can't show you the course before you buy it, be aware. Be on alert, because there's a reason for that. So if me and Zach are going to give you the exact everything you need to know. By the way, I've been doing this 22 years. Zach's going on from 8 to 9 years. That's basically 30 years. I just don't know how you argue with me on it. Why would people get upset because we give free stuff away? Oh, I get it. There's just a certain geographic people that I'm offering this course, and whatever. And you know what? By the way, people who make threats to me and Zach, it just shows your character when you do it. Like, you can have an opinion. I listen. I'm entitled to mine. You're entitled to yours. But I don't wish harm on anybody. And so people like threatening to like do like, I just like, really. I promise you, if you were ever in person, you would never follow through on it. I just know this for a fact. So listen, we don't hate anyone, but just keep in mind that people that hate me and Zach are the ones that won't change their business model. And we just let the market determine that in the long run. So I've been around a long, long time. I always talk about the difference between a marathon wholesaler and a sprinter wholesaler. And I've watched Most of them are sprinters. They just come and go and then they disappear. They'll learn the issues with business partners, all this stuff. I've warned this about everyone. It's hard to get a good business partner, especially in wholesaling. They get caught in scams. They do this, they do that. And even if you don't know, you're almost like somewhat like just being around people like that creates problems for you. And I've seen it firsthand. So that's like, I'm very careful of who I work with. But listen, I love this business, the bottom line. And honestly, anyone who brings you in the wholesaling, I'm fine with it. I just want to give you options. And if you guys have options, you can do whatever you want to do. And that's what I want to leave you with and let you understand what we're doing. You have to have options. So you can pay someone. So when I started wholesaling, it was $25,000 to get like the most basic education you can. Today, I give you the most comprehensive course humanly available at freewholesaling.com. And keep in mind with this, with that free course, you get everything you need. In fact, I don't ask you to upgrade in the course. I don't have anything to do. Yes, do me and my son own X Leads? We do, because we're just, we have the same industry with the same problem as gurus as we do with the softwares. Have you noticed since we launched X Leads that suddenly all softwares have stopped their price increases and are doing reductions? You are welcome, because nobody has the guts to stand up to people. We just want free competition, and you guys make the decision. So if I do it with the software companies, guess what? If you're going to buy a wholesaling course, ask yourself, I would love to buy your course, Mr. Wholesaler, Coach, Influencer. Can I take a look at it head to toe before I pay it to you? I guarantee you the answer is absolutely no. Keep in mind, me and Zach just give it to you. You don't call me, you don't do anything, I just send it to you. Why? Because I can. And I'll leave it at that. And so if we can all agree to that, listen, anybody introduced to wholesaling, I commend them. I think there's wonderful talent in this business, but like, keep in mind, just because I do everything differently than all the other wholesale coaches, keep in mind, there's a certain president that does everything differently and tried to throw him in jail, vilify him, and now he's going to run the free world. Now, I'm not looking for that. I'm just saying, if everybody goes in one direction, you might want to look at the person going in the opposite direction. They're either crazy or they know what they're doing. And I'm telling you, I've been in this business long enough. All the coaches swim one direction. There's a reason I do not follow it, because I don't believe in it. And I want you to understand. So guys, take the hint. Go to freewholesaling.com. I'll put it on the bottom here, and just go and check it out. 100% free. You can look at everything. You don't have to worry about doing a call or anything like that. And why? Because we want you to get everything started. And also, you can go over to X Leads and you can download this 7-day free trial. Not download, just sign up for it. I want you to use the service, but we give you 1,000 free skip traits that you can download without ever paying us a dime. Why do we do that? Because we want you to be successful in wholesaling. We believe you can do it. You have choices. Don't listen to everything you hear from all the gurus saying you can only do it this way. Listen, most of you starting with a little to no money. You don't need a piece of software to get started, but it's a great tool. You need to get on the phone. You need to get with your government list, and you need to get a deal or two to get some money in your pocket. The last thing you need to do is pay a big, expensive course fee and then pay big money for PPC or PPL leads, because you're going to get your clock cleaned if you do it. I've seen it time and time again, and I just want to help you guys out. So freewholesaling.com, I got it scrolling on the bottom. And guys, listen, if you got value from the day, do me a favor. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll be on tomorrow on Flip with Rick, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have a good time with that one. Make sure you check out my son's channel, Zach Ginn. And I put up Zach Discord. Make sure you go and check that out. People are doing a ton of business in there. And once again, we have the largest Discord group. We have the largest wholesaling Facebook page. Take advantage. There's a reason for this. Remember, we just follow what you guys want. We could care less what another influencer is, because it's none of my business. I just like move on. So more power to everybody out there. I've got no ill feelings with anyone. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Guys, I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. See you.